Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. For those of you who are with us live, this is our Friday edition, and we're so happy you're here. My name's Sean Benson, and we're going to jump right in with Sensei McColl tonight. Sensei, I was looking at, basically your website for McMaster and your teaching there, and I really loved the languaging in it. It basically said, you've developed over 50 black belts. And I love that wording. And I want to ask you, what does it mean to develop a black belt?
Well, I think all of us know you have to do so many, you have to learn all the techniques, all the different physical attributes that you require to get to that level. But I think we also know that there's a psychological and a mental approach to karate. And when they write their essay, that's a very as big a part of their exam for Shodan as the physical exam. I think a lot of times we read into what the student's doing. We can see what they're doing physically, but we've got to know what's going on in their head as well, because that's what really makes takes you from the Q belt to the black to the Dan rankings. And that's what I mean by development. And each person develops differently depending on their physical abilities, their psychological makeup, and where they want to go in karate. Because we know now that karate has changed dramatically from its original beginnings in Okinawa. And there's so many derivations of karate. I mean, there's people that come to the dojo to train for for health reasons, for self-defense reasons, for artistic reasons. Some people come for social reasons, to meet other people and engage. So the dojo becomes a microcosm where all different types of people come and meet and mingle together. And that's what I love about the dojo itself, is that this microcosm develops you in different ways. You meet different people, you spar with different people, different physical attributes, different abilities. And that's really what happens. You develop more, not just as a martial artist, but as a human being. So that's my development aspect of it.
I love that. And, especially what you said about the essay. So what are you looking for? I mean, is there something you can pinpoint where you're reading, let's say, an essay, and you're looking at the mind of somebody who's thinking of going from Q to Dan ranks? Is there something you need to see?
Yeah, you definitely, I mean, in the Shodan essay, it's what karate means to you, or to that person doing the ranking. And you'll get different things. I mean, people want to learn, as I say, there's people approach the dojo, come into the dojo as they want to learn to fight. They want to learn to the artistic, the history side of karate. And so you look at this and you're sort of putting the physical person you see in front of you to the mental output in the essay. So, I mean, I'm always looking for something that's going to move forward, not something that's going to I want to be a fighter. I want to kick the living daylights out of everybody I see that gives me a rough time. I want that, I want somebody that says, comes forward to me with the approach that, and I think Sensei from Cal, who just passed away recently, he said to me, be as hard as the world makes you and be as soft as the world allows you. And that really sums up what I want to see, and especially in a Shodan, right? Someone that has that flexibility, that bend, that can adapt all the time.
Was that Sensei Merriman?
It was Sensei Merriman, exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And he was that very type of person. I mean, he was an amazing technical martial artist. At the same time, he was a great gentleman and a real when you met him, he was just like, he was open to you. Any question you asked, he'd give you the answer. He'd do the best for you all the time. I was just always amazed every time I met him.
I'm writing down so many things right now because I can't wait to crack into a few of these. There's a couple I want to come back to, but I want to go around the horn to get us started here, because we've talked a lot in recent episodes about what it means to be a black belt, but that's why I love the word develop you use. So we'll start with you, Hanshi Legacy, and then you, Sensei Dauphin. what does it mean to develop a black belt to each of you versus what does it mean to be one?
Well, it's an entirely different skill, you know. Like when we learn karate, if we're just going to do karate for ourselves, you can just use the 5 P-nuns, etc. But you learn the entire styles because you want to give back. So it's just the process of helping someone else reach their goals within the martial arts.
Sensei Dauphin?
Yeah, I think about it, Sean, as in there's really, at least in Legacy Starter, there's 7 cues, right? There's 7 steps, 7 tests. And I'm never thinking about getting somebody to a yellow belt. I'm trying to think about getting them to a black belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting a yellow belt is just one of those steps. It's already kind of lined out what you need to do to get to a black belt. The system's already there. And I think it's up to the sensei to not think of it as, hey, you got a yellow belt, we achieved something here. That's great. Like, I mean, I think yellow belt is great. People get a yellow belt. I just was talking to my partner, Christine, about it, who is Robert's student. And I said, like, it's cool to see somebody get a yellow belt, but I'm always thinking beyond that to, okay, you got the first one, you got the first rung down. How do we get to the next rung? How do we get to the next rung? How do I help you get to the next rung? And it's all laid out. By the time you've trained for 5 to 8 years, you've heard me say it, Sean, it's a meat grinder, right? It doesn't matter what meat you put in the grinder. You could put veal, you could put pork, you could put whatever you want, and then you start turning the handle, and in the end, ground meat comes out, and it all looks the same, and it's all the same, and that's what the black belt is, right? You put them in the meat grinder, and you keep turning the handle, and then they become black belts, right?
Yep. I really love that. And I think about that with the car racing. Like if you look where you are, or even a little ahead, your back gets a little skittish. You look down the road to your next turn and your back just settles and you intuitively make the right corrections. Sensei Suino, difference between being and developing a black belt.
Well, developing makes me think of the process, right? It's just like Randy was saying, there's a number of ranks. People have to learn material for their ranks. I was actually just thinking about this tonight. We've got a big group of folks getting ready to test in judo in a couple of weeks. And it's a little relentless. You know, the last 2 months before tests, they go through their test material over and over and over and over and over. And when they balk, I often point to one of the black belts and I say, look over there at Richard or Brett or Dan Holland. I say, are they great martial artists? And they go, yeah. And I go, you know, and where are you? Well, I'm a white belt getting ready to be a green belt or whatever, right? The process is there. As Randy said, it's set forth. You have to engage in it. And part of what happens is you change as a person, right? You change technically, but you change as a person as well. And it's not always obvious. I'm pretty sure Sensei McColl sees this. It's not always obvious to the people who are coming through that system where they're going to end up, what kind of ground meat they're going to be when they come out the other end.
Yep. Sensei McColl, there's one thing I want to get to, and then a new question for everybody. But you mentioned, you know, because karate's changed drastically, and you sort of talked about back in the original Okinawan days, and we've talked about this a lot on this show. I'd love to know your perspective on how karate's changed since its inception, and talk as much about what you consider that to be, and also since you started martial arts. If you can bridge those times for us in your thinking.
Okay, you know, I'll start in my era when I started, and I'll pose a secondary question to Sensei Legacy. I watched some of the Olympic karate, the kumite and the kata, but the kumite in particular. And then I thought back to 70s, late 60s, 70s, 80s, and the kumite in tournaments then. What I saw in my time, right, when I was in tournaments and so forth, I saw a more exciting style of karate in that the competitors seemed to be fighting to win, whereas I watched the Olympic, and I'm not taking anything away from the Olympic competitors. Their speed, their timing, their distancing is unbelievable. Far better than it's getting to a point where it's just amazing. But I see them fighting not to lose. Where back in the 70s, 80s, those guys were out there, those competitors were out there, they fought to win. And it was a much more, I feel, it was a much more exciting style of kumite. And I sort of throw that out to Sensei Legacy because he's been on that floor much longer than I have. So I don't know if you see the same thing in that early time, 70s, 80s tournaments versus the tournament, well, the Olympics now, and some of the other, there's the big world series that goes on in karate as well. But yeah, I just like to fire that for that section of your question. Sean.
Hanshi, what do you think?
Well, you know, I
Fighting
agree.
to win, or yeah?
That's a good way of putting it. It's more exciting when both people are fighting to win, and not just doing enough to win, you know. And in our day, if you remember back, we never wore equipment. If you were, it was a mouthpiece. I have my hands all scarred from roundhouse kicks and throwing it out and everything. But again, I think karate was pure at that time because it was empty-handed. You just faced the other guy with your skill. You had been through a lot. And, you know, you fought guys like Tony Vassetti, Rick Joslin. I never fought Wally Stokey in a fight, thank goodness. And, you know, and things like that. But the fighters there were like unique, strong, powerful. They really represented karate, you know, martial arts. And yeah, it was exciting because just of what you said, they fought to win. Nothing was going to stop them.
Yeah, it was a sense of pride as well. It wasn't looking at all the trophies on the trophy table. It was, they wanted to, if they got to that stage of winning first place, great, but they wanted to account themselves extremely well. And I think there was an energy there. And again, I think it was, as I said before, I think they were fighting to win more than now I see them fighting not to lose. They don't want to, you know, they want to progress forward. But if we move back to how karate has changed, coming out of Okinawa to Japan, of course, Japanese lengthened it because they were now putting it into universities. The stances were longer, so because they had 200, 300 students in front of them, they were up on a stage. They lengthened the stances out. I think the original intent of karate in Okinawa was it started to get away as it went to Japan, and then when it spread worldwide, it's changed dramatically. And then Gichin Funakoshi said, as the world changes, karate must change as well. So, I mean, none of it's bad. I mean, people who want to do tournaments, great. People who want to do just the artistic aspect or the historical aspect or just the health aspect. It's all good. And I think Sean, you said there was, when I believe it was with either Conroy or Clayton, that you felt that this was a new resurgence this time in karate, and I think it is. I think more people are interested in the art and are taking the art than ever before, and there are just, as I say, so many different variations. Myself, I like, and I'm teaching more now towards the practical side of karate, which means if you go back to Okinawa, the Ryukyuan Kingdom where it started, it was an art designed and developed to protect you against ruffians and villains, right? Not necessarily to win, but to survive and get away, sort of thing. So, and I like that aspect, taking the bunkai and developing flow systems with it, flow training, and doing live practice with it. all those things. So I really like that. And I do like watching some of the contemporary things as well. And tournaments, as Randy knows, I was used to go to Dave's tournament, Turkovsky's tournament every year, head referee. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy watching the students change, that psychological change where they're a little timid when they get on the floor, whether it be kata, Kobudo, or weapons, or kumite, and all of a sudden, they find this internal power, the self-confidence that I really love to watch happen. And as I say, from where it came from to where it is today, it has changed. It has to change because the world changed. I mean, we have better health systems, we have better training systems, all these different things. They make karate better. They make this karateka better themselves.
Right on. Sensei Dauphin, I know you had something you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. I guess it's mostly for Sensei McColl and Sensei Legacy, which is when I think of Olympic karate, the offense I don't think is a lot different than what I've seen. Like to me, it's the defensive principles that have changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be, again, like I want to be respectful to people who are amazing Olympic athletes. But to me, it seems like it's a distance game and it's a running game and they try and stay away from each other. Whereas when I look at things from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was about how do you impose your will on another person, and you use your defense to do that. You use your block on the way in to be able to land those techniques. And you often see both people coming in. Whereas when I watch the Olympic karate, it's one person's moving out as one person's trying to track them down. And I would welcome to hear if Sensei McColl or Sensei Legacy feels differently about the defensive side of Olympic karate. Sensei McColl, do you have any comments about that?
Well, I think if you go back, and I hate to say the old days or the past, but those earlier tournaments, I think you saw a lot more aiuchis where there's simultaneous blows. They were no one was backing up. No one was, and I go back again to say in the Olympics, their distancing and timing and speed is unbelievable, right? But before we would just say line up, bow, and I'm coming in. If you can't stop this, I'm scoring, right? And that's the way it was. I'm going to put this punch into your chest and I'm going to get the point, right? And that's the way that's the mental outlook that the fighters had there. And again, I think they were looking to win, not looking to be safe and not lose. That's where I see it as a major difference right now.
I agree with that fully. Another way of saying it is when you bowed on that line and you set yourself into that fighting stance, the fight was between your shoulders and your opponents. It wasn't in running around the ring. You went straight in. You either had the skill or most of the people did, but that makes you even work harder on your skills. It's more exciting. It's more dangerous. It's classical karate.
Yep. And if you lost, there was no shame in losing. I mean, he beat me. He hit me. He scored the point. It was a hard punch. I think you see a lot harder punches. I know there was one kumite match, I think it was for the gold medal in the Olympics, where the gentleman threw a side kick and the guy went down and he was down. I don't think it was that hard to knock him down. Maybe I'm, but anyway, he got disqualified and the guy that was lying on the floor won the gold medal. Now, I was always, Sensei Kim always said, Sensei Warner always said, you can tell the winner from the loser because the winner's still standing and the loser's down. So,
they're going to ask this guy, well, you got first a gold. Tell us about your win.
Oh my God. Right.
Yeah.
So Sensei McColl, Sensei Copeland chimed in and said, I've had his punch in the middle of my chest, your punch in the middle of his chest. And I do want to say one thing when we were all talking about this. I remember Sensei Copeland, a number of the Legacy Shorin-ryu students were going to the World Championships and he was coaching them. He was the coach of that team. And he said, look, you are going to get hit. Like, you're going to get hit. It's not that you're not going to get hit, but make sure you hit first and make sure you hit most and make sure you hit last. It's not, you're going to get hit though. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also is one of the problems from my point of view in the Olympics was that they didn't want to show it as a violent sport, right? And unfortunately, if we go back to the beginning, that's what it had to be, right? Because it was gonna, you're gonna either survive or you're not gonna survive. And the only way to survive is hit them as hard as you can so you can run away or protect your family or whatever the case may be. And so now it becomes sort of they want it to look clean. I don't think it can ever be clean, right? I mean, when you fight, you're not in these elongated stances, you're in natural postures, you're moving, you're turning your hips naturally. When we do Kihon in the basics in the dojo, we do these sort of freeze frame Zenkuchi dachis with an oizuki, right? But that's not going to happen in kumite, in an actual fight. So I mean, we have to teach those things so the stances are understood and the technique is understood. But as you progress, you leave those stances and you start to develop natural postures, and that's the way you fight. So I don't know. I like watching the Olympics. I was glad karate was in the Olympics. It was a little sanitized for me. So.
Just to put a little button on that, I was thinking about what you said the other week, Hanshi, a fight avoided is a fight won. And I was talking to my students about, if you're not fighting, go home and celebrate your win. And if you have to fight, it's because there's no other choice. So do your work and leave, or wait for the police. But don't move around and spar with them. And I love what you two are talking about with this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. God damn, I love our new format. This is so exciting. We could just chat all night, but we want you to know who you're chatting with, and also that you can be a part of this show. My name's Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts, and it is my privilege every single time, and especially with our new format, my privilege is extended to introduce my teachers on this call, who are the co-hosts of Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. Sensei Randy Dauphin, he's my direct instructor. He's a 7th degree black belt in Legacy Shorin-ryu, as well as Hakatsu White Crane, and a 4th degree black belt in Muso Jikiden Ishin Ryu. His teachers in karate is Hanshi Legacy, and in sword is Sensei Suino. Sensei Suino is an 8th degree black belt in Iaido, and he also founds and runs the Japanese Martial Arts Center, as well as being a 6th degree black belt in Judo and Jujitsu. And Hanshi Legacy is the founder of Legacy Shorin-ryu. He's a 10th degree black belt, as well as a 10th degree black belt in White Crane, as well as being a black belt in sword. Sensei Dauphin, I hand it to you to introduce our guest tonight.
Thanks, Sean. Listen, I'm super excited to introduce Sensei McColl. If you wonder why I'm leaning in on the camera, it's because I always have some written notes on the screen here. So I'm going to say a bunch of stuff about Sensei McColl. So Sensei McColl's karate journey began at the age of 24 down at the Delta Club here in Hamilton, a club which the McMaster dojo still holds close ties with. And he's the instructor at McMaster for 40 years, 40 plus years. Sensei has studied and become proficient in Goju Ryu karate, Kobudo, and Jujitsu. He's had many travels, and they've taken him to places like Thailand to study Muay Thai kickboxing, to train in Japan at the Budokan with Goshi Yamaguchi, and to Argentina to demonstrate at the World Karate Championships. Told you, Sensei McColl, you're not a total enigma on the internet. We can still find stuff about you. Okay. Sensei McColl has developed well over 50 quality black belts. Quality, I think, is the key word there. Quality black belts, and has been well-known, outstanding instructor for over 40 years at McMaster. he took over that McMaster dojo in 1984. When we were doing every experience I've had with Sensei McColl has been positive, personally, everyone. The last time I talked to him, he said, Randy, just call me Phil. And I said, no, I'm not going to call you Phil. I'm going to call you Sensei. And I told him that in the marketing, we called him O Sensei. We called him O Sensei McColl. And I got a message from Hanshi Cesar Burkowski who said, Randy, how do you define O Sensei? And I said, O Sensei to me is the big sensei, or the sensei who's been around a lot more, knows a lot more, and has done a lot more. And I said to Hanshi Burkowski, I'm not sure if that's right or not. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And he said, that's 100% right. And he said, Sensei McColl is definitely big. Okay, we just talked about it. He's 6'5". And he said he's definitely been around for a long time, and his karate is definitely very, very good. So that's right from Hanshi Cesar Burkowski. The first time I met him was when I was Sensei Legacy student, and I competed in the Higashi Cup, Sensei Shane Higashi Cup, which is the inter-university championships. And I'm happy to say that Western won that year that I went. Because when I talked to Sensei McColl recently, I said, do you remember when we met? And he said, I was just looking at the Higashi Cup where Western was the last one to win. And I think you were on that team. And I said, yeah, I was. Right. So that was great. You know, I want to say that you can always judge somebody by the company that they keep. And Sensei McColl is friends with some of the people that we love and respect the most. People like Sensei Dave Tarkovsky, Sensei Conrad Copeland, and Sensei Odette Rice. Sensei Rice put one of my favorite humans about Sensei McColl on our post. And to me, a couple of things I want to say, words that jump to mind when I think of Sensei McColl: skilled, dedicated, honest. You're not going to find a more honest human being than Sensei McColl. Obviously, you can already tell, super friendly, not joking, tall. And one of the words that always comes to mind when I think of Sensei McColl is karateka. Just, he is a karateka. So that's my introduction for Sensei McColl.
Thanks so much, Sensei Dauphin. So for everybody watching, by the way, what an awesome turnout. We got a great crew with us. If you're not watching us live right now, that means you're watching on YouTube after the fact or listening to one of our podcasts. We're grateful to have you listen and hit that smash, the subscribe and the like buttons. But for the people who are here tonight, we want you to be a part of this living history. So at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat button that Robert just illuminated. Please enter your questions for our guests there. And assuming your questions aren't rat shit, we will pose them to our guests. And if they are, you'll be banned from the show for all future episodes. We'll discuss. There'll be a tribunal. You're also listening to adults talk. You're listening to adults talk about their own experiences, their own thoughts and feelings. And if you don't like any of it, look for the similarities, not the differences. Sorry, Sensei Suino, I'm running with that one tonight. He likes when I'm more of a dick about it. So we've lost our guest for a sec, you know, with internet connectivity and stuff, but he brought up something that I actually wanted to go around the horn on. So I think this is a great chance to throw the question out. Be as hard as the world makes you, be as soft as the world allows. So I'll start with you, Hanshi Legacy. Does karate let you be softer? And is that one of the goals?
Karate gives you the ability to go through the whole gambit. You know, where you're allowed to have your choice. You can be tough if you have to be, but mainly, you know, it's like I've had it happen to me several times where people want to start some type of a confrontation. You can easily deflect it, just turn it off, you know. But then there are other times where, I remember one time there was a lady, and this is on a physical level, but I'm trying to give you that idea, being threatened by this guy who was inebriated, he was drunk. And I just simply said to him, look, if you don't leave now, I'm going to spank you in front of all these people. And the guy left. So, and there's a lot more to it than just the physical part, but it's just to give you an idea you know, you can be that way. It's better to be kind, and it's better to help other persons. And that's all what really martial arts is. But if there comes an event where you need to protect someone, you have to be ready for that as well. So it's the whole gamut. Martial arts is an art, and an art is something that works 90% of the time for you, every time. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
I love that. Yeah, I really want to crack that idea open. Sensei Suino, you know, how much softer can you get over time, or is that something you want to do?
Yeah, well, you know, if your hand is frozen in this shape of a fist 100% of the time, that's a deformity. You have to be able to open your hand, right? And in life, you must have both. You have to live the spectrum. I think that training, severe training for a lifetime in martial arts allows you to live the spectrum. You can be hard when you need to, and you can be soft when you want to.
Yeah.
Sensei Dauphin?
Listen, I just fought for an hour and something in here since Legacy was watching. Maybe one or two people I was hard on. The rest of the people, I'd say I was pretty soft on them while I was fighting with them. And Sensei Legacy even said to me, they think they're doing good because you're taking it easy on them. Right? But I guess as martial artists, we get to choose, right? Like that's what training gives you. It gives you the choice to choose to be soft or hard. You get to decide. Whereas other people that don't train, they don't get to choose. It's thrust upon them. They got to run and be soft and weak, or they got to fight for their life and not know how to do it. Right? The world's going to thrust it upon you. But I guess when you train, you get to decide which side of the coin you want to take, or you get a better chance of deciding, I guess.
Yep. Well, we talked about this. I called you once when somebody was going, fuck you, this, that. And I said, how far do you want to take this? And he goes, as far as you want. And I looked over at my like marine hunting knife and my sword and my like literally right there. And I just said, you're not going to appreciate this, but I'm going to go. And that's a really good thing for you. And he said, fuck you, screw you. And I told you about it, Sensei. And I was like, he'll never understand that I actually did choose to leave that. And he goes, they don't, and they won't. But it was an interesting moment to go, yeah, like that was 100% choice of like, I'm not going to pull out a knife because some guy's yelling, but literally could. And that's not even a karate thing. That's just literally a knife right there thing, allegedly, in my track, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I like the idea too of, you know, you're not choosing peace if you can't fight. Like you're not actually a pacifist, because if you can't fight, that's a default, and you can't even define yourself as that because there's no part of it that is a choice.
Let's hear from Sensei McColl what he thinks about all that.
Is he on your screen?
He has been dropped from the call, so Robbie was trying to get him back.
Well, he's gone.
So do that. We can keep talking about that. I know Sensei McColl has gone up to his second residence, and maybe the internet is not as strong there. What's I'm getting messages now. I see. While we're waiting for him, I'm going to be improvisational. And I'm going to say, if Sensei Copeland is willing to jump on the screen for a second, because he has the most knowledge of Sensei McColl. Can we turn his camera on for a second? Is he willing to do that, Robbie? Oh, Sensei Copeland.
Hey.
Can't hear you. Ask to unmute. How about now?
How about now? Is this better?
Yeah, it is.
Good morning. Good to see you guys. You look lovely like always.
Not as lovely as you, Sensei.
Wow.
I have a question for you. Do you remember the first time while we're waiting for Sensei McColl to get back, do you remember the very first time you laid eyes on Sensei McColl?
It would have to been the transition I made from Windsor to train in Hamilton with Sensei Warner. And I remember we had Sensei McColl. There was a couple other, Greg Miller, a couple other tall, big stature fellas at the dojo. But Sensei McColl was the senior guy. He was at the corner of the room as they lined up in like an L shape. And I said to myself, I remember saying to myself, holy crap, that guy is big. But that just gave me more reason to stay there because challenges was always good, But that's when I first started to go to Hamilton. He was on the floor running the show. And that was quite a few years ago. We've since become great friends.
I think the last time you saw him was the last time I saw him, if I'm not mistaken. Sensei?
No, I've seen him. I've seen him since then. We've hung out, at different functions because I have
Allegedly, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that during COVID. So allegedly.
Allegedly, absolutely, for sure. Yes. But he's always, like you said, he's always a gentleman and a great martial artist for sure. I mean, we've competed together. We've competed against each other. We've been to tournaments. He's a strong competitor. And yes, when you go to fight, yeah, you engage. You're not doing cat and mouse game. You engage. And then the winner comes out not free and clear, bruised and experienced.
Yeah.
Is Benson still on this call? Because I feel like we might have just lost him too.
I think he's gone.
What the hell, people? Okay, this is the incredible shrinking punch kick choke chat show.
Yeah, the incredible shrinking. That's what we're going to call this episode.
You better hold on to Sensei legacy there. Grab him by the arm.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, Sensei Copeland, do you remember seeing Sensei McColl do anything like outstanding? Anything jump out in your mind? Like, I mean, when I think of you, I remember like certain things you did. I remember watching you compete in Hamilton. I remember being in your dojo on University Avenue. I definitely remember your foot coming up to the side of my head when I was green belt. Like I remember seeing that for a brief moment. Do you remember anything about Sensei McColl?
Absolutely. I mean, probably one of the things that stood out the most is we were competing in New York, and we were at, I think it was what's his name? Sensei Legacy would know this guy.
Macaron?
No, Peter somebody. Peter
Urban?
No, not Peter Urban. But we had this competition in this big arena in New York. And Sensei McColl was in the ring doing his bow kata. And in one of the moves where he did a side strike, the bow, I mean, we're talking about a bow, not the toothpick, a bow. And he hit it and cranked it so hard that it actually, the end of it broke and flew out of the ring into the audience. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so amazing. Do you know how hard, how strong you have to be to put a stop on that strike to get that thing to fly? It was amazing. So, I mean, part of the events that we did, where he competes, we usually end up winning. But that was one of those things that stood out to this day. And this was so many years ago.
So I really appreciate that, Sensei Copeland. And I saw Sensei McColl pop back on, but now he's disappeared again. So it's like the internet, right? Like if you Google Sensei McColl's name, you'll find nothing on the internet, right? Like if you don't know him, you're not going to learn anything about him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Benson, you're back.
I'm back. So I didn't mention that I'm down in Los Angeles right now, and I've had great internet until now. So we've got some gremlins, Anyways, this is one of my joys with this show is the ability to do it from different places. So he's in his second home and I'm in what I consider to be my second home, this city. So, oh my God, did we just lose Sensei Suino?
No, he's just joking around. I knew that. I saw his screen blank out and it was like, oh, doing around.
Oh,
Mhm.
So Sean, Sensei Suino has called this the Incredible Punch Kick Choke Chat Shrinking Podcast.
oh, there he is.
Love it.
McColl is back now.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll leave. See ya.
No, don't leave. I want to hear what you had to say.
Sensei
No, I was-
Copeland was just talking about your bow kata in New York City where you broke your bow and it went flying off into the crowd.
You remember that?
I remember that. My worry was it split. It almost split. So it was like a knife edge. And I was afraid to turn around thinking that it was still going to be stuck in somebody.
Do you remember who the host of that tournament was? I can't remember. I can see him with long, grayish long, or kind of grayish long hair, but tall. I'm thinking somebody, Peter somebody.
You're younger than me, so you should remember this.
But no, we're just saying that one of the things that stuck out in my mind, when I recall some of the events that we've been at, was that one, that competition in New York. That was pretty awesome. We're in a boxing room when that happened.
We've been to some good ones, that's for sure. I think one of the ones you remember when we were at the World Championships at Disney World in Florida.
All right.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I understand contact. I understand. There was 12 teams. That's 24 people. 12 teams of paramedics at that tournament. Every one of them was busy. There were people lying everywhere, and it was like incredible. And it happens, but I got to also start looking at the corner referees and the judges and so forth and saying, guys, are you calling the contact? Are you, telling the fighters to be under control, sort of thing? But yeah, those were different days.
Did Mickey Mouse or Pluto or Tinkerbell compete, or was it?
I don't know. I think it was all the bad characters, Brutus. Yeah.
Is that the tournament where you push my teeth in?
No.
Let's hear about that. Let's hear, like, before we let Sensei Copeland go and we get back to Sensei McColl, I would love to hear the two of you dialogue about this where Sensei McColl pushed your teeth in.
No, he didn't punch him in. He didn't punch me. I think I got punched in the fight, and he was on the side. I think he was coaching me actually, and they were loose. My two front teeth were loose, and he actually pushed them back in and says, "Okay, the match is almost over." And I went back in and fought. You remember? And I went back in. That was at the World Championships. Yeah, that was a brutal.
I always wanted to be a dentist. No, but I have a picture of Conroy and myself. I think we were in a small Shiai or tournament in London, right? And we're fighting, and somebody took the picture just as you threw a sweep, and my left foot's going in the wrong direction. I'm losing balance, and the punch is coming in.
That was Ken Talik's Shiai. I remember that.
Yes, it was. Exactly. But you know what? I look at Conroy, and I think to me, he's ageless. And I don't know, Randy, if you were there at one of Dave Tarkovsky's tournaments, but Conroy was fighting, I'm trying to remember who it was, somebody from Hamilton for the Grand Championship. And he was more of a contemporary fighter, and he came in too close to Conroy. Conroy swept him, took him down, and punched him, right? It was like old school to win it. Because I think it was 4-4 at that point, and that ended up 5-4 for Mr. Copeland.
Well, what I want to say, Sensei McColl, is everybody on this call loves Sensei Copeland's smile. So thank you so much. For putting back in position. We all like his smile.
Okay, I'm gonna go off topic here a minute. So we're up at the cottage outside of Perry Sound right now. A couple weeks ago, we're running the dogs out in the bush on a hydro cut, and I get a phone call in the middle of the bush. And you know who it was?
Sensei
It was-
Copeland.
Yes, it was Sensei Copeland. He says, hey, these guys want you to go on punch, kick, choke, and chat, all this sort of stuff. And he says, by the way, I love you, but I love your wife more. Made her smile.
It's funny that you say that because we just did this big training camp where Sensei Copeland was teaching, and my partner, my wife, came and gave him a big hug, and he said, "You're my second favorite person at this event. You know who my favorite person is?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I know who the favorite person is."
This stuff is getting around, man. This is crazy.
Yeah.
All your tricks are coming out. Sensei
Your tricks.
Copeland, they're all
Your
coming
tricks.
out.
I'm out there, man. Like, hello.
You're gonna be banned from seminars, except unless it's all males, right?
No kidding.
Maybe that's your master plan.
Sensei
Awesome.
Copeland, thank you so much.
All right. Take care, guys. Enjoy. Awesome.
Yeah. Much love
Thank
and
you.
respect. Thank you, Sensei.
You got it. Good to see you, Phil.
Good to see you.
Sensei McColl, you missed the intro. So I rarely tell a guest they have to go rewatch the show they're in, although we encourage it because we won't get that view count up. But you need to go rewatch the show because Sensei Dofat and Sensei Copeland said some just incredible things about you. And then
Oh.
let's just jump back in because I actually dropped off the call for a sec as well. What brought you into your first dojo? What was it like growing up for you before that? And what kept you there?
You know, sometimes I think you shouldn't be too honest when people. I went into the dojo for one reason. I like to fight. I like physical contact. I thought this was great. So I get there at the dojo, and I think training a few weeks. I think, okay, I want to get better. So I looking around, and I see a black belt. And I said, would you want to spar? Right? So I'm a white belt, right? So, and I'm bigger than him, but this guy could kick, right? And he really did a job on me. But what happened, why he did the job was because at least I knew how to throw a sweep, and he came in and I swept him. Well, our egos are such that no white belt's going to sweep me. I'm going to teach him a lesson. So next day I go into the dojo and I go to Sensei Warren. I said, I'd like some shin pads. He said, what do you want shin pads for? I just need some shin pads. And so he gives me the shin pads. I buy them and I put them on my arms because my arms are black and blue from being kicked the night before. But I love the camaraderie. I love the fact that we work together. There wasn't, egos weren't part of it. We just all wanted to be better. There were Friday night classes. And then after Friday night, about 10 or 12 of us would get together and we just kick the bag. We could surround the bag and each guy to try and kick it harder than the next guy. There was just a real sense of we're doing something together, right? And it happens to be karate. And we're all getting better and we're getting to know each other. We travel places. It was that sort of, there was a home there. And I think the more you make dojos like that, that welcome everybody and give everybody an opportunity to exceed and become the best that they can become, everybody benefits, right? From just the contact, the meeting of each other and the skills you develop and the training. And that's what got me there and that's what kept me there.
So how old were you? And then also, how old were you when you went in there?
24.
About 24.
And talk to us about the people in the room. You know, Sensei Warner, tell us a bit about him and what the classes were like and what the feel and how that all was.
Well, it was really interesting because our classes when I first started were 2.5 hours, right? And I hear today that in California there are classes that are 30, 35 minutes. We did 20 minutes of stretching, right? Before we even got to basics. So it was a different animal there. And it was the one thing that really struck me about that dojo on 1109 Main Street in Hamilton was that Sensei brought in people from everything, every walk of life. I mean, he brought in martial artists, he brought in yogis, he brought in hypnotists, and these were seminars we had. So we were just, it wasn't about just punch and kick, right? It was about everything, all different styles, Screama, Shotokan would come in from England, Jim Wilson. It was Wally Slokey came in. We gave an unbelievable seminar. I can remember it to this day. A great friend of mine, Joe Perry, was there, probably one of the best fighters in the dojo. And Sensei Slokey was showing him some techniques. And I remember Sensei Slokey reaches down like he's going to touch his foot. And Joe's looking at him. All of a sudden, Sensei Slokey's his foot is around Joe's head. And it was amazing, the people. That era, there were so many great fighters, so many great technicians that would come and disseminate information for, I think we were paying $10 a seminar or something like that. And you do a 3-hour seminar. We had Sensei Urban came up from New York several times. Some people thought he was a little bit on the edge on some things, but he had great seminars. One seminar he taught, he said, okay, everybody has to bring a 5-gallon milk jug in. Remember those plastic milk jugs?
Mhm.
We sparred with those. We put them in our hands and we started sparring with those things. It was crazy, but it was great because the sound, all this stuff was amazing. Then I think the next time he came up, he said, we're doing a sweep seminar. Everybody has to bring a broom. So you're sort of thinking, what the is this, right? But you held the broom out like this, and the soft end was the end of it, and you swept it with your foot, right? To learn how to come around and take that broom out from underneath. Crazy stuff, but it worked. And it kept us, all of us we were interested. We may have thought it was a little strange, but we were there in the dojo and everybody was doing it. It was great. It was great. And that's what, those things, the little shi'is, the tournaments we all went to, that's what kept everybody there. There was a core group in that dojo, as I'm sure in Sensei Legacy's dojo and Randy's dojo and all your dojos, there's a core group that sort of is the glue, and it draws people in. They want to be part of that group, right? And no matter what the skill level is, they still want to be part of that group. They want to fit in. And the people in that group, that core group, have most times are really giving. They help them, right? And that's what it makes it stronger and stronger and stronger. And I don't know if all dojos are like that today. I know probably your dojos are like that. My dojo's like that. We get together not only for seminars and this sort of thing, but I bring everybody out to my house. I got a large property. We train outside. We have a barbecue. And you develop, you develop, sort of a bond, which is perfect. I love that. That's what got me there. That's what keeps me here, and that's what I keep doing, sort of thing.
We love some good barbecue, Sensei McColl. Like if you ever and we're willing to travel for good barbecue.
We'll drive for meat.
But one thing you got to know. Yeah, one thing you got to know. I don't eat meat. So mine's all vegetables, but I get my students, they can bring their meat in, or I can buy whatever they want, cook it for them.
That's why you have a youthful glow, because you don't eat meat.
No, that's probably wine.
Nice.
Yes. Sensei, normally we kick over the 10 questions around this time, but I actually want to jump into a question from Sensei Shea, Justin Shea, one of our black belts. And
Okay.
He says, because you fell off a little, let's push the questions a moment. As someone who has seen the benefits of martial arts in the university setting, what are your thoughts on having some sort of classical militaristic requirement for all citizens of a country?
Well, Switzerland does it. And Switzerland's a pretty amazing place. I've been there. Our country of Canada, I'm speaking now, and the United States, we're a microcosm. We bring a lot of people in. You know, it's a melting pot. It might be an interesting concept. That might be more of an interesting concept teaching it in university, but not everybody goes to university. That's what Japanese did it, and Anko Itoso in Okinawa, he introduced karate into the school system there. Yeah, there's benefits for sure about becoming a group, training as a group, working as a group, and having a leader, learning to lead. Those things are all there. So that's sort of my roundabout way of saying, yeah, there's benefits to it for sure. How you go about it, how you make that work, I'm not 100% sure. I think from North American standpoint, people like to be individualistic. I know, and I'll jump back here for a second. I know when I read Sensei Urban's book, his first book, The Karate Dojo, and there's a section that says, once you start training karate, your life will be changed forever. Well, I'm reading this, I'm saying, well, no, I'm going to be who I am forever, right? Well, he was right, I was wrong, right? Your life does change. So I think any type of training that instills respect for one another within an education system and system of self-defense, so you are confident, it's a win-win for everybody. The whole public wins on that one, for sure.
Sensei Suino, our American brother who would have been coming of age on the heels of a draft. What are your thoughts on compulsory military service?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because to be quite honest, there's a lot of people you probably don't want in your military. Right? I guess, if they're conscripts and they're going to do the work, you got to, the beauty of the military, at least as far as I understand it in the US, is it's a system that's highly evolved. So you can plug people in who maybe are missing half the Lego set. They can still get along. I think to be a complete human being, you need a formative experience, whether that's in the military, whether it's going off on adventures around the world, or we get to do it in a dojo, right? So it doesn't have to be compulsory military service, but you can definitely transform people by having them go through something like a decade of karate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Sensei Dauphin?
Listen, most of the constructs that have been created by humans, like religion, politics, economics, are just agreed upon things for us so we can trust people, right? Oh, you're a Catholic, I'm a Catholic, we can get along. Oh, you're a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, we can get along. Justin, that question came because I actually talk about this sometimes with him, but I think the benefit of compulsory military training would be that every citizen would have something to relate to another human being in their country about, whether you are a Navy SEAL or just the person who ordered toilet paper. You had to go through basic training. You had to do all this stuff. And listen, I would ask everybody on this call, it's a question I would ask everybody. Anybody who's done 5 to 7 years of martial arts training, would you trust them more than somebody else? Would you relate to them more? Would you feel closer to them or not? I'll ask any. You can shoot that around as much as you want, Sean. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, I'll start. I obviously would. And then in sobriety, we have the same idea. Like, I would hire somebody who's sober in recovery over an equivalent person who's not, because I understand the tenets upon which they've based their decision-making, their sense of self. And Sensei Suino said it, it's a fucking formative experience. And if somebody gets through that, there's nothing the job will present them with that even compares. So I know they're up to any task. Hanshi Legacy, I'll throw Sensei Dauphin's question back to you. Compulsory military service, and obviously, you know, would you trust someone more who's a 5 to 7 year martial artist or not?
Well, I would tend to say that you had 10 people in the room and 2 of them were martial artists. They would probably somehow start moving towards each other. But then there's whether he was from a classical school or reputable school or whatever. But I think that it brings a lot of things in common. And in school, for instance, like Anko Itosu, when he put it into the public schools, that I think that probably did a lot in helping the children mature and to step up and be accounting for themselves, as opposed to never have done it. Right, where now sometimes the children run the parents because they don't know how to handle them more. They send them to us to learn that, to learn the discipline, right? You see that every day. Parents standing at the doorway because they want you to help discipline their children. And then after that, they couldn't believe that you did it. They're like, even Randy, they can't believe that their child actually stood in line, just simply that. So I would have to say it wouldn't do any harm.
And then we'll end on you, Sensei McColl, but Sensei Suino, we didn't touch on the idea of just, you know, do you have an inherent trust in martial artists, more or less?
Well, let me continue to play the devil's advocate. There are a number of martial arts systems out there that I think create delusions in their practitioners. And I don't know if I'd have the same level of trust. So somebody that did judo for 7 years, somebody that came from the legacy system for 7 years, right? A hard charging, realistic martial art. I suspect I'd have a lot in common with those people. So without naming any specific martial artists or arts, if someone says to me that they can knock over opponents without touching them, we're probably going to have a few disagreements.
Right.
So then I guess if there was mandatory military compulsory training, that would be a national system and it would be the system, right? So then that would be the system. That would be the good system. And let's just pretend it was Legacy Shorin or JMAC system, right? So then we would all trust them. Everybody would have something to relate to. That would be amazing. Sorry to interject there, but yeah.
No, that's great. And real quick, before I go to Sensei McColl, I'm on the street yesterday, hyper busy area of LA. Dude walks up to me, he goes, "Hey man, what motorbike's that?" And I'm like, "That's a Yamaha MT-07." And you know, I'm a bit of an ambassador for motorcycles. So I'm really taking my time with him and I'm showing him around the bike. And I noticed his ears and I'm like, "You roll, brother?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Where at?" He goes, "Guy up in the valley. I haven't been there for a couple of years because my teacher moved downtown, Jean-Jacques Machado. I got my black belt with him." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? We're bros now. I'm going by his shop tomorrow." Like, this is literally just of plucking the cartilage in his ear and realizing that we have literally ground ourselves on the same mats. And I trust that guy now, you know, like as far as that goes. Sensei McColl?
Well, I want to go back to Nick's comment there about not mentioning martial artists. There's a quote from Choki Motobu that says, "Nothing is more harmful to the world than a martial art that is not effective in actual self-defense." So that's his quote. And, you know, anybody that trains in a dojo and will limit it to what we consider dojos and karate, true karate, right? They bow and come on the floor. I've got an instant bond for them. They show respect for where they are. They show respect for the people that are in there. So there's a connection. There's an immediate connection. He may be a lesser skill or greater skill. I may not necessarily like the style he does or not like his sensei. It doesn't matter, right? There's a bond that's immediately there. that you can start to build more trust with or develop trust with. And it's something that you'll never lose. Like when you're talking to that guy about motorcycles, right? It's bang, it's right there. You got it. You immediately connect, right? And it's the same with martial arts.
Mhm.
You know, Sensei McColl Demora Sensei, when we had Sensei Fumio Demora on this podcast, and he said, I consider all karateka family. Even you guys. That's what he said. Right. So yeah, I think he, in short words, said exactly what you just said, right? Like all the karate. And you know, since you know, in judo, there's a well-established practice of a judo guy comes in the dojo and they're honest and they want to roll with you and they want to train with you. That's something that's really known about judo. You're welcomed into the dojo and you're welcome to come on the floor and train. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're right. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And that's pretty much true in the BJJ world now too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think at one time we were closed, different styles were, you know, Shizoru is better than Goju Ryu or vice versa, or Shotokan or whatever. I think that's sort of melting away and going back to what it originally was. In Okinawa, Funakoshi would go over to Miyagi's dojo. His students, they would exchange information. Funakoshi didn't like Motobu, but I mean, that was okay. They could probably go over there, exchange some information, and go back and forth. And I think that's happening more and more. People are willing to look at different things and say, and sort of push the politicalized style names away and train more with each other. And like, you know, get together, hey, look at this technique. What do you think of this? Oh, look at this one, back and forth. I think that's really important. I think that builds a stronger relationship and also builds stronger martial arts as well.
I think you're right, Sensei McColl, and you already have referenced Master Hitoshi Etsune. And that new book that's come out about, I would encourage people to read that book if you haven't, because even they talk about Miyagi Chojin, when Hitoshi is very old, at least going once a week or once a month and sitting with Hitoshi and just discussing karate and helping to inform his thinking of what karate was. And that's a Shorin Ryu master talking with the founder of Goju Ryu. So it can't not be influencing each other. It can't not. And it can't not be like Sensei Benson said it at the beginning, right? Like, let's focus on the similarities, not the differences.
Yeah. And the differences are very small. They're not, the differences have been over time have gotten bigger and bigger, and they're not really that big. The difference is 2 hands, 2 feet. How many different things can you do? Right. I mean, you might come at a different angle. You might have the fist, whatever, but we're human beings. I mean, basically it's going to all be the same stuff with slight variations.
Yeah, Sensei Suino and I have talked about stuff like this too, like in Iaido. It's like, okay, well, there's all these different styles of Iaido. And I know Sensei Suino trains in a few different styles, even though Mukso Jigden Ishin Ryu is our core style. But in the end, you got the same katana in your hand. It's got the same pointy end and the same sharp side.
Yeah.
And one person lives and one person dies, right? Like, I mean, it's that's
Sensei McColl, it is time. The 10 questions.
Uh-oh.
This is your chance to answer as impulsively as you can, but then please feel free to expand your answers as you wish. Uh-oh is right.
Okay.
Here it comes. What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Front snap kick to the groin.
Just writing down the word groin.
Everybody's marked notes.
As I'm older, the
Yeah.
kicks come down, you see.
Also, if you don't know, Sensei McColl 6'5", and so like that snap hook is coming from a far distance, and it's a big foot hitting you in the groin. But sorry, Sean.
Actually, now as I'm getting older, I like kicking to the knees and to the hip. I like that a lot from some of the bunkai I've been learning and practicing.
Who's the most influential martial artist in your life?
Well, first of all, Sensei Warner. That's number one right there for me. And then after that, it would be Sensei Kim and Professor Jay's in there. So I mean, it's going to be a list, and I'm not going to. I'll keep them on one level playing, right? I'm not going to say number one, number two, number three, because there's been so many people. I mean, just an amazing number of people that have been there for me in different capacities. So, yeah. Fumio Demura, I had seminars with him, and he was amazing, man. So, and Peter Urban. So there you go. Stop me now.
Sensei, like he's saying like, I trained with him. All the names you're mentioning, like he's like, I trained with him. I trained with that guy too.
you know, Sensei Legacy. I think there was a period, and I'll say in Ontario, where there are people coming in here to all these dojos that, as history is now showing us, we had an amazing number of high quality martial artists and giving us so much information. It was just unbelievable.
Sensei McColl,
Yes.
who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Okay, I'm going to say, and this has just been in my recent studies, Choki Motobu. Gichin Funakoshi didn't like him because he called him a thug. He would work out his techniques, and then he would go to in Shuri Okinawa, he would go to the red light district in the bars, and he'd get in a fight and he'd test his techniques. That's back then. I mean, now you don't want to necessarily do that, but I think what I'm learning now, what I appreciate from him is that he made his techniques and worked out his techniques to be as effective as possible. He wasn't interested in how high his kick was. He wanted techniques that flowed from one to the other and solved the problem immediately. It wasn't going to be a 5 3-minute rounds. It was going to be over with right then and there. And he everything was in the kata, the bunkai and the kata. It was all there. So I just, as I've learned that more and more, I go back and I look at my katas and I look at trying to work with the bunkai, because a lot of the stuff wasn't written down. But right now, that's who I'm most driven to follow at the moment.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your training?
Wow. Seeing that I had 2 years off, or almost 2 years off with COVID, I think what excites me is new students, seeing new ideas, seeing that enthusiasm with new students coming in. That's what keeps me going to the dojo every day. It also makes me feel like I'm not as old as I am, because I'm working. I think all of us who work with younger people, you never look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, look how old I am now, right? Yeah, maybe you do look in the mirror and say, wow, I am looking old. But you go into that dojo and you just get that energy. It's like somebody's giving you a shot every time you go in. And that's what I'm excited about for the next 5 years. New students, new techniques, learning more and more all the time.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
That's a loaded question. I would like to know, and I got there, like the samurai, they used to say with the samurai before he died, he'd look over his shoulder to make sure he left nothing undone. Everything was completed. And if I get there and he's there to welcome me, I'd like to hear him say, you got it all done.
Do you have a favorite film and television martial artist?
Favorite television film martial artist. You know what? I like Jackie Chan because he doesn't take himself too seriously.
Me too.
He can laugh at himself, and at the same time, somebody that does the stunts he does.
Is there a martial artist, living or dead, in all of recorded history that you'd like to train with the most?
I can only name one, eh? It'd
You
be
can name
Choki
as many as you
Motobu.
like.
Okay, Choki Motobu, Gichin Funakoshi, Choki Miyagi. Just write that whole line right down there. All those masters that came out of Okinawa.
If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would they be getting?
Confidence and health.
And the last two questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement and your greatest regret?
Wow. Greatest achievement, becoming a black belt, Shodan. Greatest regret, probably could have trained harder. Right? And I trained a lot, but could have trained harder.
We got a question for you. From Robert Schlumsky, one of our crew on the show. What is your advice for building and maintaining a quality dojo in this day and age?
Great question.
It's a super question. Make sure you know everybody's name, first thing, right? Second thing is always smile and always help, right? And if they've got a question, and even though you're busy and you got to do something, they've got a question, you answer the question. That's the bottom line right there, all the time. Help them, encourage them, and know their name.
It's funny you say that, Sensei McColl, because Robert Schlumsky will know that if you look on the whiteboard over here, when new students come in, we write their names on the board so that the instructor can look over at the board and call them by name rather than saying to them over and over again, what is your name again? Sorry, what is your name again? What is your name again? That's mostly for me because I'm punchy and I can't remember the names anymore, right? So
I've always threatened to get hello, I'm, and put their name on stickers and stick it on their Ds.
right.
Sensei Suino, let's throw that question to you. Let's go around the horn on this before we go around the horn and say goodnight. Your advice for building and maintaining a quality dojo in this day and age?
Oh,
A lot more work than most people think.
Oh,
Right? Yes. Welcome everybody in. Let them start where they want to start and bring them along to where you want them to be. Be a thought leader. Train as hard as you can based on your age and physical limitations. Find ways to inspire people. And I solve the name problem by giving people nicknames as soon as possible, because for some reason I never forget the nicknames.
That's the best one. I love that. Yeah.
What I got.
Hanshi Legacy, to build and maintain a quality dojo.
I'm not much of a business guy. This guy does all the work for me. But you know what? I looked up myself to actually build something up is don't send your students anywhere, lead them to where you want them to go so that they have a good example. And that everything else will take care of itself. But that's once they're on the floor. Some people
Sense-
send their students to tournaments and different like
Right.
that. But if you bring them there, you lead them and becomes more of, you know, more instinctive. And they see their sensei do it. Right? They're looking for leadership from their sensei.
Love that. I wrote that down. Don't send them, lead them. Sensei Dauphin?
We all know ourselves. So Sensei McColl knows himself, Sensei Suino, Sensei Legacy. I know myself. So I think it's really important that you're authentic about who you are, because we all know it's not actually the style, it's the teacher that you come in. And if you get a good teacher, you're going to get the benefits, whether it's BJJ, judo, iaido, karate, whatever it is. So be authentic and be honest. Don't mislead people. I think today it's, I've thought about this a lot since we had Grandmaster Joe Corley on this, when he said, when people walk in the door, don't tell them what you're going to give them, ask them what they want, right? Like the first question is ask them what they want to get from martial arts. You know, you're going to get the same answers over and over again. I want to be confident. I want to be a better fighter. Like whatever that is, but it's still good to ask them with a question of what they want. And then I guess last for me would be know your market, right? Like what is that's a pure business thing, right? What is your market? Like who are you appealing to, right? And what are you trying to give them, right? Like you talked about motorcycles. You like the Japanese motorcycles, Sean? I like them too, but I prefer North American motorcycles, American motorcycles. That's the one I got parked out there, right? So know your market, right? Like, and appeal to your market. If your market is about like people feeling good and happy when they leave, then that's your market, and make sure that. But if your market is Sensei McColl's market or Sensei Legacy or Sensei Suino or me or you, which is this effective? Can you fight? Can you apply this? Make sure you're honest and authentic about that when people walk in the door. That way there's going to be no misunderstandings when they put their money down and start bringing people to the dojo, right? That'd be my advice.
I'm not going to add a lot, Robert, but I just wrote down, and it's very much what Sensei Dauphin said. I just wrote down, know what I offer. I know what I offer. And that's when someone asks about the club, I can tell them what they're going to get. And that so far is working to build our Toronto club a student at a time, and the retention's been excellent. Smaller club though, so ask me again in 10 years when it's 200 students. Sensei McColl, what we do is we go around the horn and we talk about our time with you and we share our thoughts, and then the last thoughts go to you before a little bit of housekeeping. So Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about our time tonight?
It was a great time. I think it was all around where classical karate, basically, and that, you know, the depth of our martial art lies in being in a lineage. And that's what I get from Sensei McColl, is that he's proud of his lineage, he's proud of classical karate, and we all belong to that. That's where that brotherhood, it runs really deep. So, and also it was nice to get reacquainted and acquainted with you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino?
Yeah, I think I laughed more in this episode than I have in a long time. So that's really nice. You know, if I'm sitting around at Randy's house with Hanshi Legacy and just shooting the shit, we talk about the Okinawan teachers so much. And I think that in this episode, Sensei McColl, you made reference to the Okinawan teachers more than I can recall on one of our episodes of Punch Kick Choke Chat. And you talked about Choki Mitobu, you talked about Funakoshi Sensei, you talked about Chojo Miyagi. That's really cool, right? To bring those names forth. And when we're talking about the history of karate and what karate is now, it's a great retrospective. Really enjoyed our chat.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
Listen, I want to say something. it's not necessarily first about Sensei McColl, but it's about us. We've actually gotten pretty good about this, right? Like the Incredible Shrinking podcast. It was kind of cool that like Sensei McColl lost his connection while we were introducing him. And I didn't really actually even realize that he was gone. And then all of a sudden you dropped off, Sean. And then we got Sensei Copeland on here and we kept it going. And then you got back and then Sensei McColl got back and we just kept moving on with it. And I'm super proud we could do that. So that was kind of fun. But, and that's about us. But listen, Sensei McColl, I always write down a bunch of notes. I like what you talked about. What does karate mean to you as an essay that you asked your black belts to write? Man, at some point, I want to tell you about a time when I walked into Sensei Legacy's house and it was a yellow belt. And the topic was, how has karate changed my life? And the person, the white belt, he was laughing and it was about, I hate karate. I can't wait to get my yellow belt because my parents said I can quit. And he was laughing. And as soon as I read it, I started laughing. So I want to talk to you about that in the future. I loved our chat about developing black belts and not what a black belt is. We've not ever talked about that on this show yet, developing a black belt. We've talked about what a black belt is, but not developing them. And I think that was super cool. I loved all the stuff we talked about with Olympic karate, fighting not to lose, imposing your will on another person with your defense. And I don't disagree with any of that. That's stuff I'm going to be thinking about. As the world changes, karate must change as well. Or maybe karate needs to change the world. That's one of the things that I started to think about, right? As the world changes, because it made me think about when Sensei Legacy said, karate's here to change you. You're not here to change karate, right? So that's just a thought. Like, I'm not trying to be contrary, but just provide an additional thought for people. I like that you said that in kumite, it can never be clean. Yeah, like I did a bunch of stuff in here tonight. None of it was like in the kata, except in little tiny snippets. Most of it was like dirty and grimy. And that's, I think, what karate actually kind of is. I just loved really Sensei McColl hearing you talk about fighting. Like, it reminded me so much of Sensei Legacy, hearing you talk about fighting. Lots of things resonate with me when I hear different karate masters talk about things, and that's definitely one. Honestly, you said like you love to fight. I love seeing you, thinking of you at 6'5" as a white belt with shin guards on your forearms because you want to fight more. That's, everybody should fucking listen to this podcast and listen to that. Also, people should think about $10 for a 3-hour seminar with the people, the names that you mentioned. That's kind of incredible, right?
I think it went up to 20 at one point.
Yeah. And if you think about it, now it's 50 years later, and it's actually not that much more expensive relatively. I think it's like $149 now. And I always tell people, you probably drink more coffee than that from Tim Hortons and Starbucks in a week. So like, if you want to go do like a 2-day seminar, $149 is less than the coffee that you drink every week. I really like that you said that like an effective technique is a fucking shot to the nuts with your foot. Like I like that so much. That's the best. You mentioned all these names: Don Warner, Sensei Richard Kim, Master Wally J, Professor Wally J. Like, these are names I've heard about like from the very first day I walked in the dojo from Sensei Legacy, and it was so nice to hear you talking about them. Over there on my library where students can check out books, the last book I just read was Choki Matobu's book. So at some point I want to chat with you about that and your thoughts on that, because that practical side of Bunkai, I really enjoy it. The last seminar I taught, I took his favorite kata, which is Nahanchi Shoden, and I taught the kata, but also we went through all the dirty, grimy bunkai from the kata, which I really enjoyed doing. I like when you said about the dojo gives you that energy and that camaraderie. And after you're done, You're still standing around the heavy bag, kicking the heavy bag together. That's something that people need to take forward. Like every dojo should be doing that with their students, building that camaraderie. Man, so cool that you said, God, we say, hey, Sensei McColl, you left nothing left undone. You did it all. You left nothing left undone. We could all aspire to that. Know everyone's name and smile when they walk in the dojo. That's just such good advice. And listen, Sensei McColl, I say this often, but I truly mean it. Like, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I can't wait to, I know 100% our paths are going to cross again, and I can't wait to see you again. Like, I can't wait to see you again. So I'm going to kick it over to Sean, and then he'll take it from there.
Yeah, Sensei, I just want to say quickly before we give you your last word, you know, I wrote down delightful and infectious, and hearing you laugh as you're joyfully thinking of your next 5 years of training, or you're joyfully thinking of those students. It's such a delight because, you know, I like the idea, take your art seriously, don't take yourself seriously. And the joy and the laughter as you're describing something you obviously take seriously is great. And then honestly, I just wrote down black belt. So many of us join this thing to get a black belt. And then we realize when we get it that it's the beginning. But I love that you said that's your greatest achievement. I mean, it's such a thing that society still goes, holy fuck, you're a black belt. And I love that you still hold on to that as such a significant achievement, because it is. And I really like that you just made that so simple and so clear. We'll do some housekeeping after, but what do you want to go out on, Sensei?
Well, I think right now what I want to say is, first of all, thank you. Sensei Kim always said, the two greatest words ever invented, and they probably never will be changed, is thank you. So you've done a great thing here. I've talked to Randy prior to coming on, and we said we're talking about COVID, and this is developed out of COVID. Well, it's going to go beyond that, because what you're doing, sitting around talking, is great. And now everybody else can watch this, and they can like it or not like it, which is great. I mean, they have that option, and I think that's an important thing. It's just like people might like the front kick, or they do like the front kick, or they, you know, we're all different, but we're all doing the same thing. And wow, this has been a blast, guys. I really have enjoyed being on this and talking to all of you. Sean, I never met you. Nick, I never met you before. Hey, great gentlemen. Really good to talk to you, and thank you.
It's our pleasure. I really look forward to meeting you in person, Sensei. It's going to be a great time.
For sure.
Sensei Dauphin, what do we got coming up?
Okay, so first I want to say, if you don't like a front kick, I'm going to bring you over to Sensei McColl's dojo and let him give you a shot in the pills, and then you'll understand why it's a good technique. We're going to be we do these shorts, right? So we don't do them live. So the people who are on this call, we do these shorts. We've done one with many different people. So next couple of weeks, getting into the summer holidays, people are doing different things. So we're going to release some shorts. You'll see them. Look on the social network. You'll see them out there. The next person we're going to be talking to is Sensei Scott Hogarth. And we're just kind of, he's got a couple of things going on right now, but I think it's going to be at the end of this month on a Thursday on our regular time. We're just kind of going back and forth right now with what's most convenient for him.
Amazing.
He showed up at our May training camp, and everybody went electric when he walked in the room. Like, everybody was so excited to see him come walking in. And another guy, just like Sensei McColl, who's been in karate from the roots in Canada and North America, and it'll be really nice to hear him talk about all the same names that Sensei Legacy and Sensei McColl were just talking about. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited. And make sure, if you're watching those shorts, make sure you throw in your comments. We want to know what you think of those one-offs. It's going to be exciting to interact with you via that way. I just want to say thanks to Robert Shlumsky, to Mike Russell, to Victoria Feth, to Justin Shea, to Alden Adair, and to Andrei Sedashev, who run the platform of this show, and they make it work for us so we can come in. We do some of the work, but they do most of the work, and that way we can come and present our guests to you. So we're really grateful to them. It doesn't exist without them. Good night, everybody. I'm gonna go
Good
out
night.
to the Los Angeles sunshine, ride my motorbike through the hills.
Sensei's. Rock and roll.
Thanks so much, Sensei McColl.
Thank you.